The history of the Sydney Harbour Bridge is well known, but not many know about the epic story of George Killen, the man who took a leap of faith and jumped 50 meters off the bridge to help rescue a fellow co-worker. It was a stormy day on October 1930. The rain was pouring and the conditions on top of the bridge were horrendous. Vincent Kelly, a rigger working on the construction, continues drilling with no safety harness in place. Suddenly, he slips and falls into the harbour, landing feet first and breaking 3 ribs in the process. More than 1,400 workers were hired, many facing what would be considered by today's standards perilous conditions, with no preventative measures in place. There are a lot of stories about the construction of the Harbour Bridge, but not a lot about George's heroics. But why are we only hearing about this now? We speak to George's granddaughter Maeve and visit the New South Wales State Library to learn more about the history of the bridge and explore why George's story is only coming to light now. Here we speak to Margot Riley, head of the bridge memorabilia at the New South Wales State Library.
Well, there were over 1,400 men that were hired for the construction phase. I think the photographs really show the lack of what we would consider to be safety measures today. This was a time where men were desperate for work, so they wore their own clothing. There was no protective clothing at all. You know, they were exposed to the elements at all times. There were no safety harnesses. They didn't wear any form of protective helmets. So by today's standards, it would just not be, no one would go to work on a bridge or on any kind of building site with those kinds of risks. A good example of poor conditions. It was a rainy day. Kelly was working on the deck of the bridge, and he stepped back and slipped and went straight into the water 50 metres below. His mate, George Killen, and he was able to dive into the water to actually support his mate and help him get to the pontoon. I think there were, it was part of the everyday life of these men. This is the risk they took every day. It was reported in the papers of the day, but I don't think these men really spoke about their working conditions outside of their mates and the people that knew and experienced what they were experiencing.
My name is Maeve Brooks. I'm George Killen's granddaughter. Granddad, he was a quiet man. He didn't have a lot to say a lot of the time, but when he did talk, then you listened to him. Grandma and Granddad actually met when they were both in service just outside Singleton. They met in the early 20s, got married in 1925. They were married for over 50 years, which was quite an achievement. We don't know what happened when he was in the army, but because he just never spoke of it. But we do know that when he came back, he had major health issues. In his later life, Granddad would have major bleeds and was hospitalised with those. The last one that he had was actually when he died. He was in hospital with that for a couple of weeks before he passed, but just so many health issues that he came back with, and that may have also contributed to why he was so quiet when he came back. There is no help for veterans then. It was just you get back from the war, you get stuck in, you do go back to your life, you go back to your job, you just resume your life. He went to work, saw Vincent Kelly fell, so just an automatic response that he went in to help, because he would help anyone that was in need, and so that was just, he saw someone in need, so he helped. Grandma found out about it when someone from the Royal Humane Society came to see her to ask her whether she was going to go to the ceremony when he was being presented with his award, and she just had no idea. It was something that we'd always known because of the certificate that Grandad was given. He didn't like to have a fuss made of him at any time, especially around birthdays. Just to have him recognised for what he did, because he is really a hero in our books, even though it wasn't much spoken of, but we all knew that that's what had happened.
Being humble means recognizing that we are not on earth to see how important we can become, but to see how much difference we can make in the lives of others. In his eyes, George didn't want to be recognized for doing something that many others would have done if they had the chance. In any case, he is a hero and should be recognized for his heroics on that day, just like many others who lost their lives working on that bridge.